Before you worry that remakes and remasters are ruining the gaming landscape, know that this game is everything you want it to be. It's not perfect, but it delivers in every meaningful way. To be fair, I did not play the original. At the time, I was a lot more into the newly released Halo 2 from just a few months prior. Also, I'm not necessarily a fan of horror. Between you and me, The Quarry is still sitting on my shelf sealed. I'm also notoriously bad at games with increased difficulty. Ask me how far I've gotten in Elden Ring. So know that this gameplay footage is mixed with standard and assisted. I'll pause now for you to go ahead and hate on me. Released in 2005, Resident Evil was originally a GameCube exclusive. I worked at Best Buy back then, and I remember the hype around the game, especially how unbelievable it was that it initially released only on GameCube of all places. Halo is a masterpiece even back then, with a 96 on Metacritic as of this writing. Obviously, anticipation for this remake was high. Know that regardless of how you might feel about the previous RE2 and RE3 remakes, this game absolutely nails it and should not be missed. Graphics. The original Resident Evil 4 looked fantastic for the time. Even so, very much along the same lines of the Metroid Prime remaster we reviewed earlier this year, they really took things to the next level here. The character models look absolutely incredible. And even though more of this version takes place at night, the details throughout really show what the engine is capable of. Playing on a PS5, the frame rate is steady and did not dip my entire playthrough. The only part that was less than stellar was the rain at one point. Not quite GTA Collection level, but pretty close. It looked like it would have been in something from 20 years ago, not like the rest of the game does. Maybe this can be fixed in a patch, but it was literally only one time, so not terrible at all. Graphically, I think that's my only complaint. Gameplay. There is something cathartic about a game with linear design elements like Resident Evil 4. While the areas are made to guide you in a general direction and the map still feels big, it's definitely accessible while still exuding some claustrophobic vibes, especially in tight corridors. The world feels big enough for puzzles and exploration without feeling overwhelming. Apparently the original had more daytime settings, but I think this focus on night gives that air of an unknown beyond what you see in front of you and adds to the desire to explore. The insides of buildings are also fantastic. While there are some assets that get used over in certain areas, overall, the houses and buildings you enter and explore feel lived in. The weapons are also fantastic. They're balanced enough that you don't feel at a disadvantage using any particular one, but they also don't feel OP and finish off enemies really easy. At least not without upgrading them as you progress. There are also plenty of points along the way where the merchant shows up for you to do just that. I think my favorite is the Stingray rifle, especially once you improve your reload speed and have the biometric scope on it. The biometric scope is easily the coolest thing I've seen in weapon upgrades in a long time. Such weapon balancing I think really adds to the replay value of a game, since you want to try out all of them in every possible situation or with various enemy types. Speaking of the enemies, villagers do seem to repeat a few times. I swear that lady in the apron with a pitchfork is everywhere. Some kind of color swap or maybe another face to put on the model at different points would have mixed it up sufficiently, but beyond that I can't complain. They feel smart enough that they do pose a challenge, especially when you're cornered in an area and they still find a way to get to you. The village at the start comes to mind with how they climb up the ladders to the second story windows, or the suits of armor when you're playing as Ashley with no weapon and just a lantern. Story. Like I said, I didn't play the original, but apparently this remake has made some changes, and those changes make the story more coherent and in line with the rest of the series. While there is some cheesiness to it, it's very self-aware. Many of the one-liners are still here like in the original, and the more detailed character models lend themselves to more believability in their motivations. Leon seems like he's suave, but also a tough guy. Ashley feels like a damsel in distress, but not to a degrading point, and Salazar seems like a madman. They have more personality than with some of the other characters from the later games. I remember playing Resident Evil 5 when it first came out on Xbox 360, and Chris and Shiva seem so bland. Leon and Ashley, by comparison, feel like people you can root for and want to see succeed. You also don't need to be a huge fan of the series or have played the previous games. You'll be drawn in enough, and the pacing is spot on, that you'll want to know what's coming next. As good as this game is, I'm surprised they didn't try and charge more than $60 for it. The price of games are on the rise, and I could see them making some kind of argument for that here. Thankfully, instead we got a remake we deserve at a fair price. If we're giving grades, Resident Evil 4 Remake is undoubtedly a 10 out of 10. It makes the horror genre more approachable by including more action elements, but retains the scare factor. It respects your time with great level design and an engaging story and characters, and looks absolutely incredible. The only release in April I'm really excited for is Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. With so many delays, I thought it would never come out. So recently I replayed through most of it via emulation. I'll make a video on the remake sometime after the release at the end of April. In between now and then, I think I'll do a retrospective on Super Mario Odyssey. I recently did a poll on Instagram and asked if folks would watch a video about an otherwise beloved game that I don't care for. And what do you know, a lot of folks said they tune into just that for Super Mario Odyssey. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed yet, I'd love if you could hit that button to help the channel grow, and maybe share this video with a friend who also enjoys games. I'm always open to hearing your take, whether the same as mine or completely different, so leave a comment on your experience with Resident Evil 4 Remake or the original. Take care, and we'll see you next time.